Douglas Macgregor asserts that individuals in Washington, being uniformly ideologues, are incapable of engaging in meaningful discussions with dissenting parties due to their rigid ideological stance. He suggests that anyone opposing American policies, especially in military and strategic realms, is automatically labeled as an adversary, echoing the divisive rhetoric reminiscent of the George Bush era. Macgregor questions the notion of victory in aiding Ukraine, emphasizing the absence of a clear definition for success from the neoconservative or globalist perspective. Actions that harm Russia and its leadership are seen as strategically beneficial for the United States and its allies. While I don't personally align with this viewpoint, it's important to note wars often commence without careful consideration of their conclusion. If the only envisioned end to a conflict is the utter destruction of the opponent, the war is likely to persist indefinitely. Unfortunately, this appears to be the current situation. Analysts widely acknowledge the significance of Bach as a linchpin in the defense of Danzig due to its strategic location and infrastructure. Its fall could significantly hinder efforts to establish another effective defensive line. Despite this, there seems to be a lack of awareness regarding the potential PR fallout from sacrificing Ukrainian lives in pursuit of strategic goals. There's anticipation that Russian forces are biding their time, waiting for favorable conditions to launch their offensive. However, there are doubts about Ukraine's ability to preemptively counter this move, particularly considering uncertainties surrounding their military capabilities. While the Russian forces appear well prepared and decisive, the Ukrainians' readiness remains a question mark. It's crucial to recognize that the forces at the top, totaling 130,000 reserves yet to be deployed, could play a pivotal role in the unfolding conflict. Yes, the forces are indeed spread out across the region, avoiding clustering for obvious icy reasons. They extend from the top of the map to the darker central area, with the ability to swiftly maneuver in all directions due to the comprehensive road networks controlled by the Russians. Currently, the 60,000 Wagner troops, along with the 50,000 Donetsk militias and regular Russian forces, are engaged in active combat along the curved red arrows, indicating their commitment to the front line. Additionally, the 50,000 forces stationed near Harrison, although not directly engaged, are in a defensive stance, prepared for any potential Ukrainian offensive. The Ukrainian forces, depicted by the numbers 880,000 at the top and 40,000 to the left of the map, were previously substantial, but have likely diminished due to recent redeployments. It's presumed that a significant portion has been redirected to reinforce strategic locations like Bot and Adika. With reports of Bakhmut's fall, Ukrainian defenses are likely to retreat further westward to maintain cohesion. Recent intelligence suggests that the distance between the two red arrows around Bakhmut is diminishing, indicating a critical development. The fate of the remaining Ukrainian forces in Bakhmut remains uncertain, with reports suggesting surrender due to isolation and lack of resources. The situation for Ukrainian counterattacks has drastically changed from just weeks ago. Their movements are closely monitored by a comprehensive network of surveillance platforms, leaving little chance of reaching Russian lines without facing heavy artillery and missile fire. Under these circumstances, the Russians may opt to wait rather than risk engaging Ukrainian forces. In October and November of 1967, General Westmoreland conveyed an optimistic outlook during his public speaking engagements across the United States, expressing pride in the Vietnamese forces and suggesting that victory in Vietnam was within reach. Similarly, other high-ranking military officials like General Petraeus painted positive pictures of progress, such as the readiness of the Iraqi army and the success of democratic endeavors in Iraq. However, these assertions often prove to be unfounded. There's a pervasive lack of integrity within the upper echelons of the military, where truth-telling is discouraged or suppressed. Lower-ranking soldiers, sergeants, lieutenants, and junior captains are more likely to provide honest assessments compared to their superiors. The absence of accountability further exacerbates this issue, as there are no repercussions for dishonesty. Many high-ranking officers justify deception as a duty to support the president and his policies, even if it means sacrificing truthfulness. This mindset has historical precedent seen in the actions of German generals during World War II, who later faced accountability for their falsehoods. It's evident that within the officer corps, There's a prevailing culture where telling the truth, especially if it contradicts superiors or political agendas, is not considered a priority. This sentiment was echoed when General Petraeus's testimony in 2005 was criticized for being overly optimistic and self-serving. Overall, there's a deep-seated understanding among lower-ranking military personnel about the realities of truth-telling within the institution. Frankly speaking, every presidential administration is aware that certain individuals in Congress, such as Senator Cotton, Senator Rubio, Senator Schumer, or others, often seize upon events to either embarrass the administration or push forward legislation. While there may be some truth to Senator Cotton's accusations against Austin, I don't hold much regard for politicians who have consistently failed to be honest with the American people. The culture of deceit within these institutions has become normalized, making it challenging to enact meaningful change. It's concerning to see an active duty four-star general acting as a policymaker and publicly discussing matters beyond his purview. His role should be limited to articulating the current administration's policies when required. Unfortunately, many high-ranking military officers, especially regional unified commanders, develop a sense of grandiosity akin to Caesar, believing they hold more authority than they do. In propaganda, it's expected for military leaders to express confidence in their readiness and capabilities. However, their primary responsibility is readiness for combat, not provocation or deterrence. Public statements should adhere strictly to official policy and avoid unnecessary commentary on sensitive topics, which only further underscores the lack of cohesive leadership in Washington. In terms of naval power, interactions like the one between the Royal Navy and the US Navy submarine captains are commonplace and often lighthearted. While China may have more vessels numerically, a significant portion of their fleet is dedicated to coastal defense, diminishing their effectiveness in blue water operations. It's important to recognize the capabilities of the Chinese Navy, particularly in discussions about defending Taiwan or other strategic interests. However, delving into these discussions without thorough preparation can be perilous. Reflecting on the outbreak of World War II in 1941, when the US Navy faced logistical challenges due to a shortage of oil, it highlights the importance of logistical preparedness in military operations. Currently, the Pacific Theater relies on three major logistical hubs known to both the US and Chinese militaries. If these hubs were to be destroyed, likely through precision-guided missile attacks, the Navy's ability to operate in the Pacific would be severely compromised. Instead of fixating on the prospect of direct conflict with China or Russia, it's crucial to focus on readiness and understanding the directives from the President. Public discourse on military preparedness should be cautious, as it can inadvertently reveal vulnerabilities. Past examples such as General MacArthur's public statements during World War II demonstrate the importance of discretion. Regarding the recent incident involving a live grenade found in a gift package sent from Ukraine to Poland, it raises questions about the history of tension between the two countries. Whether intentional or accidental, the incident underscores the importance of being vigilant and prepared for unexpected threats. The need for thorough investigation and diplomacy to address such sensitive matters in the OPAD I've recently completed for the American Conservative. I highlight the remarks made by the Deputy Polish Minister of Defense, who expressed concerns about the escalating tensions and the potential involvement of Poland in the conflict. There are indications that Poland is considering mobilizing up to 200,000 troops next year, a move that is unsettling given the reluctance of other NATO members aside from perhaps Romania to engage in aggressive actions against Russia. This development is troubling, especially considering President Biden's stance against direct military confrontation with Russia. Despite this, there seems to be a growing push from Poland to garner support, potentially even intervention from the United States and other coalition members. This divergence in objectives within NATO poses significant risks, particularly if smaller states seek to leverage larger allies for their own interest. Reports suggest that Poland may have approximately 200,000 combat-ready troops with an additional 500,000 personnel in various roles, not all suited for frontline duty. This underscores the significant toll the conflict has taken on Ukrainian forces. President Zelensky's acknowledgement of the formidable Russian firepower and his plea for more support imply a sober assessment of the situation. While Solosnayko, who maintains communication with Moscow, appears to adopt a realistic approach. Zelensky remains steadfast in his commitment to the conflict, perhaps unable to backtrack from his previous statements and positions. The situation in Kiev and the Ukrainian government's stance are increasingly uncertain, with the potential for internal divisions to escalate into violence. Amidst this uncertainty, Russia's disillusionment with the West adds another layer of complexity to the ongoing conflict. He likely maintains communication channels with the chairman of the Joint Chiefs and possibly Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin. However, recalling past incidents involving Milley, who leaked his rejected advice to the New York Times, there may be a reluctance within the administration to acknowledge any missteps that could jeopardize Ukraine's security. Many in Washington, encompassing a wide spectrum of policymakers and influencers, seem to have embraced the narrative that Russia is weak and incompetent while overestimating the capabilities of Ukrainian forces. This sentiment has led to calls for further intervention, such as establishing secure areas in western Ukraine. However, unlike in past conflicts like Vietnam, where the US had significant leverage, intervening in Ukraine against Russia presents a vastly different and more precarious situation. Have you ever wondered how the intricate dynamics of international conflict, past and present, can shape the course of our world? Well, let's dive into the complex situation surrounding the potential involvement of NATO in Eastern Europe, specifically Ukraine. Firstly, a crucial factor to consider is the limited resources available to NATO. While British Special Operations Forces might have some capacity to contribute, the rest of NATO seems to be lacking in substantial resources for further deployment. This presents a significant challenge to the potential for a robust response. Moreover, the Ukrainian military's dwindling ammunition and weapon supplies, compounded by their losses to Russian forces, have further complicated the situation. The strategies currently being discussed bear a striking resemblance to Hitler's plans in 1944, particularly during the Battle of the Bulge, where logistical constraints severely limited offensive capabilities. However, as fascinating as these historical parallels may be, there's a fundamental flaw in these strategies. The time frame for Russian readiness by the end of January seems improbable given current circumstances. Furthermore, the reliability of the figures provided by Ukrainian sources remains questionable due to their history of misinformation throughout the conflict. Reports of forced conscription and coercion tactics further muddy the waters of accurate assessment. It's important to remember that the confidence expressed by Ukrainian soldiers may echo the overconfidence exhibited by German soldiers in the final days of World War II. Therefore, caution should be exercised when interpreting such statements. The influence Russia exerts over the Western media landscape may amplify certain narratives, contributing to misconceptions about the true balance of forces in the region. The possibility of Russian forces significantly outnumbering their opponents, especially with potential support from Belarus, underscores the gravity of the situation. Poland's strategic importance in potential military interventions against Russia cannot be understated, raising concerns about the possibility of escalating conflict beyond Ukraine's borders. The specter of past interventions, notably in Vietnam, looms large, with the added complexity of engaging with a major power like Russia. In summary, any rationale put forth to justify a potential intervention by NATO in Western Ukraine should be outright rejected as perilous nonsense. The window for pursuing alternative approaches closed long ago. If there was a genuine intent to prevent Russian advances into Ukraine or deter them from progressing further, the opportunity existed back in February, March, and April. But the truth is, we lacked readiness then, and we certainly lack it now for a full-scale conflict in Eastern Europe. So engaging in such ideas is simply reckless. Involvement in this matter carries significant risks, and we lack the necessary resources and infrastructure. Therefore, it's crucial to grasp the essence of these points and understand the realities behind the closed doors of international conflict.